money has a pattern to it. I don't think it's based on the outside world as much as it's based on us.
How do you even identify what your set point is?
It doesn't start and end with you. You never have full responsibility, and you really never have full permission to create something else.
You are known as the money queen, okay? So was this always your life? Like, tell us about your background.
No, I was very much not a money queen. So I'm from a tiny town in Oklahoma called Sand Springs, outside Tulsa. Lower middle class family, regular public school, in a household with very limiting beliefs and restricting ideas around money.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you even realize that you can start to manifest money? Because I'm sure, I love that that's your background, because I think if people just hop on your Instagram or hear of you for the first time, they could make a different assumption.
100%.
And it's your story that makes you interesting.
Thank you. I think I've really embodied wealth well, like you wouldn't guess. And I think that is part of the transformation. So it really started, I think, a really observant child. So I'm like observing my community and my world and how my parents' friends who had money, how they acted, how they perceived money, how they thought about things, how they made money, that they started businesses. And so it was in my mind over all these years of, are they any different than me, or did they just have a good idea and go for it? Did they believe in themselves? Did they see possibilities around money? Did they have a good idea for how they could make money and, like I said, take a chance on themselves?
So then how did you start your career? Like how did a girl from Oklahoma coming from that background kind of become the money queen?
Yeah. So observing all of this and wondering about it all, right? I think to myself, I think a few things. I think I have to get an education. I want to put myself around people who have money. I want to learn as much as I can from them as possible, but not necessarily the practical things like how they think about themselves and their world, right? And I wanted to figure out a career where I could help people and make a lot of money. And that had a few twists and turns. Like I thought I would do it in like ministry world. I have a background in I have a biblical studies degree, and then my minor is also in I had this background in religion, like I'm in the Bible Belt, right? And so I think I'm gonna be like a minister, like a church psychologist or something like that. I'm not really sure. I get a I get a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in counseling. So I'm pursuing becoming a psychologist. And again, having spirituality integrated into that was the plan. And so I get these degrees, and I'm midway through my master's program, and I start thinking wait, is there an opportunity to make something of myself and of my desires now? Do I have to wait till my master's degree is finished, or can I? And I heard, one day in class, I heard people making fun of life coaches, and I was like, they're like, oh, you don't even need a degree. You can just go call yourself a life coach. And I was like, well, that sounds like a good idea. So I basically pulled all-nighters building my first website. And I combined what I knew about spirituality, law of attraction, New Age teachings, Christianity, what I was learning about psychology and counseling. And I started a blog and a life coaching business.
And that was kind of your foray into...
This was 2011.
And that was how you started your business, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, very slowly over a number of years. So I wanted to be a life coach, right? So how do you get life coaching clients? Well, I had no idea. So I decided to believe, first of all, that I could have life coaching clients. So I decided that I want to have 7 clients. That's my initial idea. So I'm going around Dallas, Texas, hanging up flyers at Starbucks, at gyms, at everywhere. I had just made this flyer that said... By then I had finished my degree. So it said feeling stuck and all these things you could be stuck around in your life. And it said Amanda Francis, Master's of Science in Counseling from Southern Methodist University, phone number, Twitter. We didn't have Instagram at the time,
Wow.
Facebook, email, whatever. And I was just believing that it was possible. People called me. I started working with them. Now I'm a life coach. Now I'm making money as a life coach. And I had a lot of other jobs. I was a nanny. I was a cocktail server. I worked at Buffalo Exchange. I did a million different things. So I start dropping these other jobs as I'm getting clients, and it's working really well. So I'm loving coaching people, being paid more than I've ever been paid in my life for something that's meaningful to me, and they're happy and they're getting results, and it's all working. So that was kind of going on. And then I think this is where the money queen thing happened. This is kind of where the unexpected part happened. I started noticing patterns in people's relationships and ideas with money. Like I noticed my client who's in sales makes a big sell. What was she saying to herself about sales and about having the sell? And like, how was she speaking to herself, and what was she believing? What was she thinking was possible? And wait, she's doing this on repeat. Every time she gets a new sell, she kind of gets into a positive expectation around sales and around money. Isn't that interesting? Then I noticed another client pays off his debt, but a few months later, he has the exact same amount of debt again. And this pattern goes on and on and on and on. And I start to think, I think people have like a set point around finances, like a certain amount of money they can't imagine having more or less than, receiving more or less than, like for their salary, for their debt, for their savings, for their investments, for everything. I just start thinking, I think money has a pattern to it. I don't think it's based on the outside world as much as it's based on us.
So then how does someone alter that set point? And how do you even identify what your set point is?
So I identified the set points by watching these people. So then I started watching myself, right? So I skipped a little part. After my master's program, I started a PhD program, and I was in it a year. And then I quit the PhD program because my life coaching business was growing, right? But I had been receiving a stipend from the PhD program, and I can't even remember what it was. It was like $1,800 a month. But I knew that I had to make up for that $1,800 a month, like really quickly. And it was like I had been out of the PhD program 1 month, and I got a few clients. And when it all shook out, the number of times I saw them per week and all of it, it was exactly $1,800 I had made up for. And I was like, I don't think I was available for not having that. So it had to come from somewhere. So I'm observing these patterns in my clients and these patterns in myself. And I'm like, I think we're manifesting it all along, and we don't know we're doing it. And that, I think, was the very beginning of like my being someone known for helping people with money.
Holy crap, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So how does someone identify what their set point is?
Okay. So think about it. And everyone has it. I was doing this with my massage therapist like 3 nights ago. Everyone has it. When they look at it, they can usually find it. So it could be your salary. Like you just don't think it's really possible to make more than this in this industry. It could be, again, the experience of paying off debt, but having that same debt again later. Or you pay off debt and then you manifest an expense that ends up putting you back in that same amount again. Or your savings account never goes below this, but it never goes above that. It happens in every areas of everyone's life. And I've worked with people who are like multi-millionaires, like 100 million millionaires. And I've worked with people like minimum wage, and we all have this. We all do this. I've had people say to me, I'm okay with getting the first eviction notice, but I'll never be evicted. And that happens over and over and over and over. And I mean, like everything you can imagine, from I will never have less than $100,000 in this account to I'll never have less than $100 in this account. Like we all function this way all the time.
And so then how do you change that? Like say you've like told yourself like whatever, or
whatever the story was that supports you creating this over and over again. Yeah. So you identify it. Like you start to notice, oh, wow, this is a thing. That girl that I heard on that podcast, I think there was something to what she was saying. Like this is a thing in my life. So once you look at it, you can start to go, like, is this the ultimate truth for me? Does this have to be my reality? Could there be another way? Could I start to imagine something different? Because once we realize that we created it, we know we can create something else.
And then are there like specific steps that you take to start to embody that?
Yeah, so it can look so many different ways for different people, but like, so they identify that it's happening and they start to wonder if it can be different. I find that when you start to wonder if it can be different, little things in your life to start to show you it can. You get like a random check in the mail, or you realize you're up for a promotion, or there's something in there that makes you go like, like I think I'm onto something. So you kind of have to stay with it. Look for clues, look for evidence, let it build your belief that more is possible for you. And then, then it's kind of like the power move is really like deciding, like, okay, it's going to be different for me. This is my new set point around money. This is my new desire. This is what I'm creating from here. And then I find when you're in that vibe, when you're like expecting that and you're like emitting that all day long, then from there, there's opportunities, there's steps, there's like, what if I just talk to my boss about this? Or what if I just create this offer in the internet? Or what if I just go hang up my flyer at that Starbucks? Or like whatever it was, there was always ways to like make it happen,
So then it's actionable steps after the belief.
Yeah, but it's in my experience with working with thousands of people at this point, it's hard to find the actionable steps without the belief.
Yeah.
Because when you don't believe it's possible, you don't see the steps.
100%. I think with anything in life, right? Like, I feel like if you don't have the belief system in place and you don't even realize that, like, okay, like maybe I can be doing something differently, then like you're kind of just like you stay where you are.
100%. Yeah, it starts with us. But when you think, and we all do this, like no one is free of it, when you think it's based on the economy or your industry or where you come from or what your family taught you or what they told you in church or what they told you, whatever, when you think money is based on all these other things and it doesn't start and end with you, you never have full responsibility and you really never have full permission to create something else.
So say someone comes from a family or has like a belief system, family or not, they've picked it up somewhere where like, you know, these there's like these invisible scripts I feel like people have around money where it's like money is the root of all evil or like oh, like money doesn't grow on trees. So how
But it does, it's paper.
Yeah. No, honestly. Yeah. So how do you undo some of that?
Our beliefs about money. So for me, it's like identifying, oh, there's a belief. And again, is that the ultimate truth for me? Can I find examples in the world of that not being true? Was there someone who that wasn't like how their life played out? Can I find, and you know, like when you start to see like, oh, it isn't always true. So and so and so and so and so and so found a way to overcome it. Well, are they any better than me? Are they any different than me? Who says I can't?
I think that that's such a powerful way to look at things, because I think oftentimes something that I see is like people will be like jealous of someone else, and I'm like, actually that should be serving as inspiration, because if they did it, you damn well can as well.
Yeah, jealousy I think is just like jealousy and envy are just like clues to our desires, you know? Yeah. It's just showing us what we're like, not just what we want in the world, but what we're meant to have in the world. When I find myself being jealous of someone, I try to like pull back that jealousy real quick and be like, what do they have that I believe I can't? And why do I believe I can't? And how would I be right now if I believe I could? And then what could I learn from them instead of being jealous of them?
Yeah, I love that. I'm the same way. And I feel like it allows for such like expansion and positivity in like your own life. And then I don't know, you kind of realize that there's like no limit as to what you can achieve.
There's no limit. And like it's odd being in LA, you know, because here I feel like a lot of people did have a lot handed to them, but not as much as you think. When you start to talking to people and figuring out how they got where they were, a lot of people here were just big dreamers who came here and decided to create something, you know?
Yeah. So it's,
and it shouldn't have been possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you see, if you look for them, there's stories like that everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere. And even if maybe they did have a leg up compared to someone like me or whatever, it's still what they did with it.
Yes.
Because a lot of people here come from money and don't do a lot with it.
Well, I mean, I think the stats are really interesting when you look at that, right? Because oftentimes they say money skips a generation, because even if you come from wealthy parents, like you are likely, like, or in the case of like many people, they're likely to kind of like squander it just because they don't decide to like take it a step further.
Yeah.
So actually it's people also like who are coming from like, maybe if they do have a leg up, it's not, and they've like grown that, or like they've made something of themselves with that. It's not that they should just be like, oh, like whatever, you know, because for every one of those people, there's 10 who just like, you know, didn't do anything with what they were given.
100%. Yeah. Didn't find the motivation or the drive, or didn't have it instilled in them or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a question about people who may be making mistakes with their money mindset, right? So say they're like listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, you know, like this is my set point, and like I've obviously identified it. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that people make after that when they're like trying to kind of like shift things?
I mean, really just getting in their own way. Like, here's the thing. Okay, so if you've believed for a long, long time that life is like this, and now you're starting to play around with the idea that life could be like that, you've already kind of been putting into motion the old thing for a long time. So I think a lot of people give up too soon. You know, like you realize you have more power and there's more potential and more possibility. Like you're not going to manifest it probably like the next day. You might start seeing, I think there's often signs and clues and little moments of evidence that it can be, but sometimes the things you put into motion are playing out for like a while as you're putting new things into motion, just from like a straight energetic manifestation perspective. So I think a big mistake would be like not staying with it and starting to say it's not working, it doesn't work. And then know this, if you are telling yourself the story over and over and over that it's not working, it doesn't work, you have to know that that is your dominant vibration. So you say you're doing like affirmations and you're journaling and you're reading my book or taking a course and you're believing, like, and on one hand you're believing and on the other hand you're saying it's not working. If the it's not working is a stronger belief than the belief of, oh, I'm going to manifest X this month, like, you know, you're not exactly like at a potent point for attraction.
Yeah, I really do think that, like, and it's hard, right? Because if you have evidence of things not working, I feel like it's sad because I think most people, and like this is where the shift happened for me, where like I think if you want to change something, you can't base what's possible based on what's already happened. You know, like you have to believe that there's something on the other side.
Right, that you're like turning the corner now, like you're turning the, like it's different from here.
Yeah.
It's not that it hasn't happened, it's that it hasn't happened yet. Like you have to stay in that space while you're creating something new, for sure.
Yeah, so I feel like money is the same thing, right? And it's interesting because, like, for example, like if someone wants to get fit, by the way, like they can kind of apply the same narrative, right? Oh, like I failed in the past, like why even try? Or like go to the gym for 3 days and then fourth day you're like too tired. Oh, like here I am failing again. But I think it's interesting because with something tangible like that, you know, you can take steps every single day to get there. Whereas what about for money manifestation? Like, are there certain things that you can do?
Yes, and it looks different. It could look different for everyone. So like, and I talk to people a lot about this because if we're talking about manifesting, it's really about what creates feeling inside of you. Like, it's not just like I can think thoughts like, oh my God, I'm going to have an 8-figure year and a $5 million quarter and the biggest launch of my life. And if I start thinking those things or saying them to myself or journaling them, I feel energy. I feel movement. I feel excitement. I can get myself into a vibe by thinking, talking, writing. Not everyone's that way. Some people really have to like envision it. They have to close their eyes and look at it. Other people might need to talk it out in a conversation. I have met people who really can't get the energy flowing until they're like working out. So they like to run on the treadmill and either envision or think the thoughts of where they're trying to go. Like, it's whatever moves energy for you.
I actually love that tip because I've found that for me, like I've talked about this, but journaling is like an incredibly powerful practice. And like I can literally feel a shift in my body.
Yes.
It's insane.
Journaling works for me every single time.
Like,
I have my journal in my Birkin.
Yeah,
like
I love that.
Yeah.
Every day.
I don't leave home without it. Yes, I can pick up my journal. If I'm in a weird spot thinking strange things, thinking something's not possible, I can pull out my journal anywhere.
Yeah.
In a parking lot. It doesn't matter. And I can remind myself where I'm going and what I'm choosing and who I am. And like, yes.
It's so powerful. So what you're saying is right, because I always say that like for me, journaling like changed who I am. Like I've been journaling every day since 2015 and like I really feel like it shaped who I am.
Same.
But if it's not that for you, like finding that thing that like what you're saying like creates that like shift is so powerful.
Yeah, I have a client who was really having a hard time like changing her, like in her industry, a lot of things have happened in her workplace and she's trying to assume the energy of what she's wanting to happen and she could not get herself in the vibe. And she's like, I just need to go to, I think she's from Toronto. She was like, I just need to go to the Four Seasons and get a really fancy latte and like sit on that couch and remember who I am. I was like, amazing. Like that wouldn't necessarily do it for me. Like I would love the environment, but I wouldn't be like vibing with money necessarily. But the journal will do it for me every time.
I love that. That's such a good tip too. I've also heard people say interesting things like, I've had a friend who is like, oh, I feel like the richest version of myself when I like go to a nice store and I just like go like walk around for a bit.
Yeah,
like,
people tell me stuff like that all the time.
That's
I love
so
that. Or
interesting.
trying on clothes at really nice places, or all of those things are valid. Whatever it is that can get you into the energy of, again, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm creating from here, you know, like, because the more you can be in that state, I think the quicker it comes. Okay. And the more you're ready for it when it comes because you expect it. You knew it was coming and it's been in your body. Like you're saying, you've been embodying it.
I love that. So actually at the beginning of the chat, you said that you were someone who like embodies wealth really well. How can someone start to do this?
Oh my gosh. It's okay. You got to think that those first stories I was telling was like 2011, right? So this has been like a long time. I started my little life coaching business 14 years ago. So different things make me feel wealthy on different days. And in some ways it's easier now because I can like pick up a Birkin bag and be like, huh, like this is my purse. I bought myself this house. Like this is my closet. But years ago, it was like just like smaller things. It was little moments. Like living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, like we had this Starbucks in this little shopping area called Utica Square, and there's chimes going off like at the church bells are going off on the hour. And there's like a fountain and there's flowers blooming. And like I would go there once a day. And it was such a luxury to me. Like when my parents would only have coffee like out of the cheap coffee, like the Mr. Coffee, like Folger situation, me having a Starbucks every day was like supreme luxury circa like 2013, right? So like I was always looking for what helped me feel like this is the woman I'm going to be, you know?
I love that. And I think it's an easy thing that everyone can apply, right? Like find those like little things that make you feel like that version of yourself. And I think it's really interesting because I've like always believed that money and like manifesting money and actually like whatever you want to manifest, you have to kind of like, it's like energy, right? So what's really interesting is sometimes I feel like people are like, oh, well, how do you do that without going into debt? I'm like, no, like if you think about a wealthy person and like the actions they're taking, they're not like overspending and like not being smart about their money. I'm like, that's like a dumb action. It's like saying, oh, like I want to run a successful business. Let me get an office. Like, but you've not done the work to you know what I mean?
Yet. Do you know what I did that I almost forgot about? And this is like, this would be such a great tip for that person. I went around for years and energetically spent money. Like I would walk.
I love that.
I would walk. I forgot all about this when I was living in Dallas, Texas, going to grad school. I lived right on the edge of Highland Park. I couldn't afford to live inside Highland Park. I would walk around and like be like, bought that house. There's a Chanel right there. Walking in the Chanel, bought that bag. Like just feel myself buying it, pretending I bought it.
That is, I like that.
Fuck not. It was so fun.
Something that I used to do, so this is before we moved to LA and we were waiting for our visa because we're Canadian, right? And every time I'd come to LA, I would just go on house viewings every Sunday for open houses because I was like, I'm going to live in one of these. And because like, I mean, we couldn't like stay in LA for longer than like a certain period of time as Canadians. And like the second my visa came through, like I feel like it was all of those like little things.
Moments of standing in those houses, believing you lived there.
It's really crazy. No, it works.
It adds up. And as a journaler, I'm sure you do this. I love to look back on my journals from 2 years ago or 10 years ago or any amount, even last year, and be like, oh my God, I wrote that down.
No, literally.
And now I've done it. Because you forget everything you write.
It's actually insane. So I did a TikTok on this, I think it was last year, and I've talked about this on the podcast as well, where I like manifested my exact home. Okay.
Oh,
like
sure.
I would write about this like imaginary home like 2 years ago. And then we moved into the exact home. Like, and I read out what I had written because I myself was like, I can't believe I wrote in such detail. And then like,
here I am.
Like, how crazy is that?
It's so crazy. So I love the ones where I'm intentionally manifestation, where I'm writing down like an income amount and I'm writing it every day and then I make it. And it's like, yay, I did it. Shouldn't have been possible. I did it. But it's, I think, even more fun when it's just little things I want that I forget I wrote. And then later I'm like, oh, I did that. Like, I want to take a little trip here. I want to take my kids there. And then, like, you're like, oh, I did it, you know?
It's, it feels like when it happens and then you look back and you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. And then when you've been doing it every day since 2015. But then when I have a chunk of time where I haven't journaled, I'm like, why?
Yes.
I know it's so powerful for me.
I mean,
I know I can move mountains with it.
Yeah, it's like, I think with anything, like if you like fall off, you're like, wait, why did I stop doing this?
Why did I stop doing it? You know, but the momentum really does build up through those things you write down. As long as you're writing them, believing you can have them.
Agree. Okay, so you, on top of being incredibly successful, are also a mom of 4. And I know that we definitely always have either young moms or like moms to be, or even like moms of a couple of different kids listening to this show. Yeah. So what are your best tips for kind of doing both?
How to be a mom and have a business? You know, it's funny how it's kind of like the same thing. And I just didn't realize how much there would be to look at and work through and process when I became a mom. But it's the same thing. Like, society has given us a lot of ideas, about what we can't do and can't have and how it's not possible to have it all and how we're going to sacrifice one or the other. So I feel like it's been an act of rebellion every day of my life to believe that I can show up for my children fully and my company, because like everything in society and in my mind is saying it's not possible. There's not enough time. So I feel like I'm constantly choosing, but if there was enough time, what would I do today? If it were possible, what would I be thinking and how would I be looking at it? Like, I feel like I'm creating my own way and like busting my own limiting beliefs and society's limiting beliefs, like as I go, if that makes sense. So practically that can mean a million different things. But I think the foundation of it is the fact that I have to choose to believe it's possible for me to continue to be successful and my kids feel really loved and seen, every day.
When you had your first baby, were you already in this state of mind, or was this something that you kind of discovered
around motherhood? So I kind of got like a weird entry into motherhood in the sense that my first two are my step kids, right? So I'm like, I don't know, like a thriving entrepreneur, like multiple seven figures a year. And I have these two kids come into my life, but they come into my life like half time, right? Yeah. So I had this like entry to part-time kids. And then I had Kanan, and then a year and a half later I had Delilah. So if you think about it, I went from 0 to 4 kids in like less than 3 years, which is wild, right? So it's not so much that when Kanan was born, or it's not so much that something major changed with any one birth or becoming a stepmom or whatever. It was just like the accumulation of it all like made my life and world completely different. And yeah, I became really aware of how like the limits, it's really like, it's hard to be a mom. You have like all these limits of all these things you can't do, but then these expectations that you should be able to do it all, like, and you feel both at the same time, I think.
But I mean, what you're saying about the act of rebellion, I feel like it's true.
It feels like an act of rebellion to actively run a business and make money and not neglect my kids. Yeah.
Talk to me about practically. What are you doing? Do you have help? Like, what are things that people can do?
So this is how it looks practically. So this is just me. Like, people might have different priorities and desires around motherhood. I wanted time with them every day that was just me and them. And I felt this way when I was pregnant for the first time. Like, people are asking, who are you going to hire and what are you going to do? And you need help. And I had been a nanny and I'd always wanted to have a nanny. So like, it wasn't, I knew I was going to have help in some form. I just didn't know what it would look like or what it would mean. So I'm telling everyone like, okay, well, I think I want to be with my kids every morning and I think I want to be with them every evening. So I think I need to carve out this like 4-hour chunk in the middle of the day to like work and have help during that time. And everyone was like, you're going to want a lot more help than that. And I'm like, but what if I don't? Like, I really think I'm someone who wants to start my day off with my kids. And that's been, it is the way it is. I feel that exact same way. Like, they wake up and I am with them and I have childcare starting at 10. So to me, like when we're here in LA, like we're in the kitchen making breakfast. We have a morning dance party every morning and like I am with them, starting the day with them, and it is fun. I get them dressed every day. When we're in Newport, I put them in the stroller and we walk along the water first thing every day, and we get breakfast at like a bakery or a little cafe or whatever. So these mornings with them is like everything to me. And then when I start my work day at like 10:30, I'm like, okay, now it's time to focus. And what's different is before kids, what's really, really different is before kids, nothing competed with my time. So anytime I had a really good idea for work or social media or a digital course or whatever, I could be like, oh, good idea. And I could run and do it right then. Now it could be, oh, good idea. And if it's time with my kids, I'm like, okay, when am I going to do that? Like, I have to write it down. I have to audio someone on my team. Like, how are we going to execute this? Like, that's the main difference. But anyway, so when I go into time with them, it's like, okay, now it's time to focus. And I have 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, to sit and focus and get done what I want to get done. Because when I'm done with this chunk of the day, I want to be with them again. Yeah. So when Kanan was a baby, so when I had 2 stepkids and 1 baby, I was fitting my work day into like 4 to 6 hours. This isn't just a work day. This is if you have to have any appointments, if you have to take like a lunch meeting, like anything that might cause me to be out of the home. When Delilah was born, I decided to go ahead and get a 40-hour-a-week person. But that doesn't mean she's watching my kids 40 hours a week. It means she's at my service 40 hours a week. So if it's 4 p.m. and I'm ready to be back with the kids and I have her till 6 p.m., she has 2 hours to do errands. So by getting a full-time person, I call her a mother's helper and not a nanny, because it's really just anything I need help with. So during my work day, it's the kids, but the rest of the time, it's anything around my house where I'm like, okay, while they're napping today, I said, while they're napping, can you hang up these clothes? Can you break down these boxes? And there was one other thing. Oh, can you set up the air purifiers in the rooms that don't have air purifiers yet? Like that's today, a random Monday, right? So it's having help in home helps me a lot. I think if I hadn't had 2 kids in less than 2 years, in addition to 2 stepkids who I'm very involved with, like I volunteer at their school and like do their class parties, and I could go on and on, I think I may have never gone full-time childcare. But even when I went full-time childcare, it's like part childcare, part assistant.
What would you say to moms who feel guilty about getting childcare?
I struggled with it so much. Like, especially as someone who was a nanny and knew they always thought they would have one, I was surprised at how much I struggled. And so let's see, how Kanan's 2.5 now. So in the 2.5 years, here's where I've gotten to with mom guilt, is it's like, there's nothing to feel guilty about. And I want to shout it from the rooftops. There's nothing to feel guilty about. And here's how I know there's nothing to feel guilty about. I'm with them every day. And other moms might have different standards for what this means. I'm with them every day. I know they feel seen and loved every day. I know they have 2 meals with me every day. I put them to bed nearly every fucking night. We have like one date night a week and one night where Eddie does bedtime so I can have a break, and one night where he does it or I do it so he can have a break. But like majority of the nights, like I'm literally putting them to bed. So if I think about the quality of their life and the quality of their time with me, what is there to actually feel guilty about? What do I think they're missing? And if I have a capable childcare person, which I do, and I think this qualifies whether you're going to daycare or an in-home daycare or an early preschool or your mother-in-law's helping, like if you think about it, I believe like sourcing a person to provide for my children during those hours is a service to them. Like a great person who also loves them, who takes care of them well while I'm working. How is there, like, what's there to feel guilty about? Do I believe their quality of life would be better if I was a full stay-at-home mom without a job, just like with them all day? To be really, really honest, I hope I don't offend anyone. No, in my case, they would not have a better life. I'm a better mom because I step away and fulfill other parts of myself and come back to them fully present for them. I think I'd be a fucking shit mom if they were just driving me crazy all day. Like I have so much patience and room and space for them because there's a chunk of my day where I work.
I love that you say that, because I know, and I don't have kids, so I'm not there yet, but I have conversations with my friends and even just like acquaintances, and like this mom guilt thing is something that comes up a lot, you know? But I think a lot of my friends who have kind of found their stride, they kind of own the fact that their work makes them a better mom.
Because, I really think it does.
Yeah, because then, you know, you don't want to sacrifice on the thing that like actually makes you happy, give your life to your kids, which by the way, if someone wants to do that, but wants to is like the caveat, right? Yeah. I think the energy of like resentment is never good, right?
I don't want to resent my kids, and there are kids who resent their moms for not living fulfilled lives.
Yes.
That's a thing too. You know, I want to show my kids what's possible, and it fulfills me to go work every day, but it also provides for us, you know, and that's something too. But it's not that I'm just providing and not raising them. I'm doing both. And like, I've had lots of clients who are very postpartum, you know, worry about these things. It's so normal to worry that your child's not going to bond with you properly, or worry that they're not going to know that you're the mom if they're with childcare for a part of the day or whatever. I have to tell you, as a nanny and then a child therapist and now a mom, kids love their mom. Kids want their mom. Kids know that mom is mom no matter what. And they might like really enjoy their child care person.
Yeah, I mean, like, I grew up with like my grandmas taking care of me, like nannies. I had all of that. And I really like, as someone who's grown up with that, I feel like it made my mom a better person. And also I think it really strengthened my parents' relationship, because I feel like they were able to also take time for the two of them. Like they'd go travel and go on vacation and and I feel like it gave me like very strong role models. I loved my mom, right? Like that. I feel like she did everything for me, but
did you ever feel like she wasn't there?
Never.
Right.
Never, ever. In fact, I feel like it gave me such strong, beautiful interpersonal relationships. Like I had the opportunity to be so close to both my like both sets of my grandparents and
Mhm.
my aunt and like all of these like my
Mhm.
nannies, you know, like
You actually had like a village.
yes, yes. And I'm grateful for it because I feel like it made me very comfortable around people. It never once took away from like the love and care and
Yeah.
like excitement that I have to or had when I was a kid to see my
To be
parents,
around
you
your
know?
mom. Yeah.
Doesn't change anything.
I mean, that's the dream. That's absolutely what I'm hoping for. So I grew up in a community where I literally I didn't know anyone who had a nanny. Anyone. I never saw it one single time.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I'm someone who needs a nanny, I didn't see it till I became a nanny, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So when I became someone who needed childcare, I was like, I think that's part of why I had so much conflict is I didn't see it done well as a child. And I also saw it done kind of poorly when I was nannying.
Yeah.
And so here I am and like, what do I want? And so it's like for these past 2.5 years, I've been like watching Kanan and how he responds to babysitters and my mother's helper and childcare and like how he acts when I leave and how he acts when I get home. And I watch him be so well adapted
Yeah.
and so happy. Like we have a date night every single Sunday night. And so last night, Kanan's like, go, mama. Like he's asking if you can come with me. And Eddie's like, remember, mama and daddy go on date nights on Sunday. It makes us better mama and daddies. And he's like, oh, okay, bye. And he runs off to Miss Jelani, who helps us a lot on Sunday nights. And I'm just thinking like, this is kind of pretend. It's kind of made up. I had that this has to be like a thing that damages our children.
Yeah.
It could damage your children if you don't bond with them as well, but does it have to?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a woman write me the other day that was like, I have my business and I can't give enough time to it. I'm trying to do it all during nap time and I'm struggling and I just don't trust strangers. And I was thinking like, wait, I would have said the same thing like before I had kids or while I was pregnant, that I don't trust strangers. And I'm like, none of these people who help me are strangers. They were when I met them. But how does anyone become a friend and not a stranger?
Mm-hmm.
Like you get to know them, like you let them in.
Yeah.
So people who've worked in my home, like they've watched the kids while I'm there, just working upstairs. It's not like the day I meet them, I fly to another country or something and leave my kids. Like I get to know them. And there's a woman on my team named Anna who answers all our DMs and does a lot of customer support for me. But I found her because she babysat for Kanan. Like a nanny agency referred her to me. She babysat. She worked in my home. And then later when her and her husband wanted traveled, my team offered her a role in my company. And just last week when there was the fire in Bel Air, she was like driving to my house at midnight in case I needed help packing up. And when I saw that DM that said, I don't trust strangers, I thought 2.5 years ago, Anna was a stranger. You know,
and now
like,
she's like,
right. So how do we form our village without like, some openness and some creativity? And there's, if someone can't afford childcare right now, I still think there's creative solutions. There's your friend coming over to your house after your kids are asleep, so you and your partner can go out. There's swapping, like who watches whose kids. There's I've seen in my courses women getting together and hiring like one nanny among 3 or 4 of them because they couldn't do it alone. Like I do think there are childcare solutions, but you cannot see them if you're all up in your mom guilt about it, you know?
I love that. And I think like it's just such an important conversation to have because I know that, a lot of women go through motherhood and I know that mom guilt is, there for I think everyone in some degree, in some capacity. And so hearing from women like yourself who've like, figured out how to navigate it, of course, like I'm sure you still deal with like bits and bobs, but like,
like little moments of like, oh, I didn't really see them long enough this morning. What can I do with them tonight to make sure I'm with them? But the fact that I scan my day to think about how much they got of me each day, like lets me know I'm not going to be someone who neglects my kids. Like
100%.
it's not even possible.
Question,
yeah, but I would encourage everyone who struggles with mom guilt to ask themselves, what am I feeling guilty about? Like what is there to feel guilty about, and what could I do about it? If it's that truly you leave at 6 a.m. and you get back at 6 p.m. and they only have you 2 hours before bed, okay, well, what are your weekends going to be like? Like, can you sneak out on your lunch break and take them out of school for lunch? Like, where are we squeezing in the meaningful time? But when we're guilty, it's really hard to find it and see it.
I love that. Okay, talk to me about your courses.
Okay, what about them?
Well, what do you have if someone wants to start taking a course with you? Where do they start?
Okay, so that's the main way Amanda Francis Inc. makes money is so I'll fill in the gap. So I'm life coaching, and then I have these life coaching clients, and I start to think to myself, if I continue to work with one client at a time, I'm going to always be trading like hours for like time for money forever. So what can I do? So I created a digital course. The first course I ever created was called Become a Life Coach. And I trained, I think it was 10, was my first cohort, 10 therapists who I knew from being in therapy world how to add life coaching legs to their practices. And that's my first digital course, right? So I started off small. It was a 6-week course. I trained them. I sold it out. I made whatever the amount of money was my goal, right? And then from there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on to something. I can really help a lot of people at once if I do the digital course thing over the coaching thing, right? So that was, I don't know, over 10 years ago, and it's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. So I have digital courses on financial empowerment, obviously, internet marketing. I have courses on branding, on social media, on motherhood, on how I manifested and attracted my soulmate. I have, this is what we do now. We're an online education empire.
And where should someone start?
If they want to start with one of my courses, well, this would be, there's so many places they could start. This is one thing they could do. If they were to go to my social media and click around, like if they show up on my stories today, which I know it won't be today when they're listening to this, today I'm releasing a training called Iconic Mom. And the tagline is not a normal mom, not meant to be one. And it's about making motherhood your own and doing it your way. So it's like a $33 training I'm releasing today, right? So like if they started there, that they would see I have other products and courses on motherhood, and that could be a great place to start. If money's really where they're wanting to work, they could start with a program I have called Drop the Motherfucking Money Struggle. And it is a 10 video bundle around clearing and healing your history and your pain points and fear with money. That'd be a great place to start. A lot of people go through that one and then they want my big money course called Money Mentality Makeover. So they could go to amandafrancis.com and peruse around, or they could go to my social media and see what we're promoting at the moment, or they could DM me and I'll help them, or they can email assistant@amandafrancis.com and my team will help them.
I love that. Okay, so I have a couple of audience questions that we've not gone through in the interview. Okay. So the first one is a quantum leap with finances even possible?
Yes. So a quantum leap, yes. Okay. So yes. Okay. So if I am, I'm going to be kind of metaphysical. If I'm sitting in the reality I'm sitting in today, and I'm looking at what I want next, and I'm starting to embody and feel into and believe it's possible to have what I want next, and I'm getting there vibrationally, right? And then I were to ask myself, what does the me who already has that, what does she want next? And I would start to fill into that, right? The me that already has the thing, what does she want next? And I start filling into like the next level me. And I'm embodying some of that now. I have had many experiences where it felt like I collapsed time.
Wait, that's so smart. I've never heard of that. That's so cool.
Thank you. It occurred to me one day when I was journaling a long time ago. So I've had experience where it felt like by being that future person that it all collapsed down and sped up, and I got there so much faster. And some people might call that a quantum leap.
Wow, I love that. I've actually never heard of this, and it's like such a tangible thing that everyone can do, because it's interesting. We don't even think ahead of the next version of us, but then there's like a version beyond that.
There's always more. It continues to amaze me how much more there is. But like when you're starting out, like if you were to take Sand Springs, Oklahoma, Amanda, and try to get her to think about my goals today, she wouldn't have been able to comprehend. It would have like freaked her out. It would have taken her out. But when you get kind of into it and you realize that everything's possible, you can totally hold what the next level you want without it like spinning you out.
Very
cool. And you can get there faster.
Okay, the next question, I think this is probably all we have time for, is, and I guess you'd have to do like a little bit of a condensed tips, but how do you manifest your dream partner?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me see how to say it quickly. Because it's like everything's the same, but romantic love was really interesting for me because I had like limiting beliefs and ways of showing up in the world that were really stopping me from creating what I wanted. And I really, really couldn't see them because they're so ingrained in me. Okay, say the question again. Exactly how they asked it.
How do you manifest your dream partner?
How do you manifest your dream partner? Okay. One very simple tip. I did exactly what you're talking about. Like you did with your house. I made lists, a million different lists of who he was, how tall he was, what he looked like, his personality, how he treated me. And I made those lists from like when I was 13. I made those lists forever. And Eddie is like every single thing besides one thing on the list. But my little caveat that I'm just going to like throw out there to the lovely women trying to date in this day and age when it really can be kind of hard this is what was stopping me from so long from meeting the right person. I was judging and discounting men all over the place. Like I would go on a date and within 10 seconds, like, you're not the one. Like I was just so closed. I was so closed off because I was so tired of meeting the wrong people. And when I shifted it and I went through the world enjoying every date and focusing on getting to know the heart of the man in front of me, even if he wasn't the one, I had so much fun dating. I was so open. And then Eddie and I's relationship evolved very like naturally because I was able to like look at him and get to know him and want to know more about him, not just go like, recently separated, 2 kids, like discount. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. It's such a good tip. And I think like shifting your attitude around dating, like someone told me once on the podcast that like she started to go into dates with the mindset that at the very least she'd make a friend and learn something interesting
and have fun maybe.
Yeah. So I feel
meet
like
an interesting person. You don't have to go out with them again, but try to wait to decide that till the end of the date and just be on the date.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amanda, this has been amazing. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Okay. I'm XO Amanda Francis on Instagram and Threads and X and Facebook and all of them. And my website is amandafrancis.com. Oh, and I have something free. I have the free Wealthy Woman Meditation Series. You can find it on my website. You could start with that. It's just a free meditation series to help you get into the vibes we've been talking about today.
Amazing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.